Our next guest believes AI returns will justify all the hype. Tech investor Gene Munster is managing partner at Deepwater Asset Management. Gene, great to have you with us. I know that you've been listening into our conversation. At what point do you get concerned, if enterprise spend pulls back at all, that the AI spend will also pull back, especially as we are sort of in the early stages of this whole thing and we may not see what the returns are on investment at this point?
Melissa, I think any pullback would largely be noise. And I think this whole conversation needs to start with some context. We've used adjectives to describe what this transformation from AI is. The whole panel is optimistic. Most people are optimistic, but I think most people are still understanding what the significance of this is. And if I think about the scale of how transformative this is, if we put electricity at 100, I would put AI at 90, I would put the internet at 50, and the smartphone at 30. I think it's that big of a deal. I think that we're going to see a bubble in the next 3 to 5 years around AI that's going to impact the entire market. That's going to, I think, make this conversation look a little trivial when we look back at it relative to the opportunity. That said, there can be some bumps in the road and is noteworthy. You don't just want to be a visionary and you want to be an investor. So I would just start there with the point that ultimately, I think that this is going to be much bigger. Nvidia is going to be powering this. I think this is a good company to own. And I just want to, give an example. We don't at Deepwater. We do not own Nvidia. We do have the Deepwater Frontier Tech Innovator. It's ticker LOUP. We own TSMC in that. TSMC trades at 8 times. They're the picks and shovels of this whole revolution. Nvidia trades at 22 times. That's, as I like to say, you get your cake and ice cream, too. You get the benefit of owning this transformative wave, but you get it at a better valuation. And so there's a lot of good things going on when it comes to AI.
Just to put your bullishness in context, Gene, I'm just curious, where would you have put metaverse back in the heyday of metaverse on that scale of innovative trends? Would it have been bigger than the internet?
25. I would have said it would have been smaller than the smartphone. I would have put 3D TV at a 5. Autonomous cars at 25 or 30, something there. I mean, this is, my personality, I don't want to get tripping over adjectives to hype things up. That's not what I do. But I think it's important for me to be on the record here is I think we're going into a huge bull market when it comes to AI. I think it's going to impact a lot of companies. Nvidia is going to benefit. There are some smaller companies that I think will benefit more.
Gene, it's Karen. Thanks for coming on. So I got to ask, though, why don't you own Nvidia as a means of diversification? TSMC, although it may be cheaper, does have some other sort of idiosyncratic risks. Why not own both?
I think that it comes down to 2025 and what the expectations are for growth. The street's at 15%. I think it's going to be better than that. I think it's going to be 15 to 20%, but it just doesn't have that. I think that's where investors' heads are at right now. It's going to be great for the next few quarters. I just think it comes down to 2025. And I think when we look at TSMC, all the things that are going on with some of the hyperscalers and them building their own chips, what Apple's doing, TSMC is going to benefit, and I think that they've got a bigger potential in 2025 to have upside. So that's why we don't own Nvidia and why we own TSMC.
Gene Munster here. Thanks for being with us. Can you help us think about or tell us how we should be thinking about the China risk to this story? It seems to be the glaring bear case, if there is one to be made. Can you help us kind of quantify what that may be and the duration in terms of how long that may last?
It's the piece that keeps me up having TSMC in our portfolio. It is to quantify the risk. I think that eventually something does happen there in terms of China and Taiwan. I don't necessarily know it's going to be military related, but I think that there needs to be some resolution. When I think about that risk, I put it in the category that if something did happen there, TSMC would be crushed. Let's say it's down 50%. That half of their production is still outside of Taiwan. I think that's in China. I think that's an important piece around how this story is evolving. So there still is that piece to it. I think the rest of the market's probably down 25% on something like that. I think it would be a huge event. So I think it would be bad. I think it would be bad for the whole market, but that is the piece. And that's the reason why TSMC is not in the conversation. It should be, if there's a Mag 8, TSMC would be the 8th. I think it would be hard to get most people on board with that because of the risk that you're outlining. But ultimately, I think it's a manageable risk.